Hi guys, my name is Ina.
And I'm Ola.
And I'm Yana. Welcome back to Kinda Fob. How are you guys doing this week? What?
I'm great. It's been a busy week per usual. We just went to a builders conference, which I have no idea how I ended up at a builders conference, but
Did you learn how to build a house?
Of course. I'm gonna start soon.
I appreciated the moral support. Ina, how was your week?
It was really good. Well, it was Valentine's and we had a really good Valentine's, except when we went out to brunch, my husband and I got out of a restaurant and then we see like a bunch of ambulances, a bunch of firefighters, police officers. We're like, what is going on? There's this huge crowd and then you see a net and it looks like there's like a guy hanging inside the net. So
It was a guy hanging.
There was two guys hanging inside the net. This was like the 20th floor in downtown Sarasota. So that was insane. And you're looking and I'm like, are they dead? Are they okay?
How did they fall off? Did they announce?
I don't know. They were construction workers, but I read that they're okay. They're alive. But that was a crazy, crazy thing to see. It kind of looked like it was like a dog.
That's what
like
I
two
thought.
hands, 2 legs, but really it was 2 people. So,
That's absolutely wild. But Yana, how was your week?
It was pretty good. Got some big contracts closed, which was nice.
Yay!
And then Ola and I spent Valentine's Day together.
Yes, we did. We watched Love is Blind, the new season.
It's so good so far.
My husband was working, so I had to find another
Valentine.
All right. Last episode, we talked about cockroaches, and this week we're talking butterflies. Both of the twins have some pretty crazy engagement stories. Ina,
Are they?
Ina, your story is something I haven't really quite heard before.
I mean, I got engaged after 5 days when I met the guy, so is that not normal?
Pretty not normal. I think I looked up the statistic, and the average time between dating and engagement is about 2.5 years or 30 months, at least in America.
Wow.
So 5 days, we kind of...
Yeah, you didn't even get 1 month.
Well, technically we talked for a month and a half, so...
Mm-hmm. How were you guys introduced to each other?
So it started out with Ola was dating a guy and she was going through a bad breakup. So I was dating a guy at that time who worked at the airport and he was able to get her a buddy pass to fly to Florida to visit our friends. So Ola flies to Florida and she meets Dima, my husband.
Yeah.
At that time...
Ola, you want to tell us your side?
Yeah, you say your side.
So I'm in Florida and a bunch of youth got together. They were playing volleyball, typical fobs. So I meet this guy, Dima, and in the first few minutes, I find out that he's missing a toe. And then I was like, okay, he's interesting. And I just started talking to him and I'm like, okay, he's a really cool guy. I could see him with my sister.
Like not with yourself?
No, not with me. So I literally step out and I knew that day she was going to break up with her boyfriend. So I call her and I said, Ina, I just found your husband.
So yes, I was dating a guy for 3 months, but it wasn't really anything serious. And that morning or afternoon, we broke up. And that evening, Ola calls me. She's like, I found your husband. I'm like, no, I'm not ready.
Yeah, so then I come back from Florida and I add him on Facebook. From her. And he didn't accept you for a while. I don't know why.
So the crazy thing is he wasn't attracted to Ola. I guess he didn't think she was pretty and we're identical twins. Still so offended over that.
Rude.
So yeah, he didn't want to accept my friend request because he's like, well, I wasn't interested in the sister, so why would I accept her? And then he found out I was coming to Florida in a month and a half. He was like, well, I guess it would be awkward if I don't accept her. So he accepted me and then he wrote me, commented on one of my photos and then we were talking. We talked for hours on Facebook and then he asked for my number and I'm like, oh, I don't give out my phone number.
So hard to get.
Being all hard to get. So then I give him my number and we talked till 8 a.m. that morning, texting. So that was crazy. It was just so interesting talking to each other. I'm like, wow, he's so fun to talk to. We had so much things in common. So yeah, that was really cool.
So you guys talked for about a month before you met.
We talked for about a month and a half. Yeah.
Okay. How did it feel when you guys finally got to meet each other in person?
So before we met in person, he's like, hey, things are going so great as we're talking. We have so much great things in common, and I really enjoyed talking to you. Let's just see where this goes. And he said, do you want to pray and fast before we meet each other? So, and I don't think I really fasted before then. So I'm like, yeah, I would love that. So every week, about once or twice a week, we really took that day and we fasted specifically about meeting each other. So I thought that was really cool. And another thing, right before I flew in, he also said, hey, do you want to make a promise that we don't kiss each other before wedding? Not that he was planning to marry me or anything, but to me, that was like the craziest thing because I took that so seriously. The guys I dated, I was like, hey, I don't want to kiss till marriage. Guys didn't respect that. So I'm like, well, too bad. So the fact that my husband Dima brought that up himself, I'm like, oh my goodness, like 100 points for that one.
100 points. How did you know that he was the one?
I didn't. It just all kind of happened. So we fly into Florida, Ola and I, and then Dima and his brother pick us up from the airport. And as I go down the escalator, I am freaking out. I have like the worst panic attack. I'm like, I don't want to meet him. I don't want to do this. But as I go down and I see him, I'm like, wow, he's really good looking. So then we get to the car and he's thinking, okay, if I grab this girl's hand, she's going to be my wife.
That's crazy.
So he grabs my hand. And to me, I had this weird thing about holding hands with guys. You know how people have like a body count, how many people they sleep with? My thing was how many guys I hold hands with. I'm like, I don't want to have a lot of guys I held hands with. So he was holding my hand and everything was so good. We went on our first date and just talked and we kept saying, wow, everything is like almost too good to be true. But then again, you don't really know the person like really over the phone, over the text. So you don't really know how it's going to go. Mm-hmm. But we just really trusted God and just like went with the flow. But things really were great.
Did you have any clue, any inkling at all that he would be proposing on this trip?
Absolutely not. I didn't even know if he was going to ask me to be his girlfriend.
So on the 4th day of us being in Florida and hanging out, he comes up to me and he says, Ola, I want to talk to you. So we go to the room and then he says, I'm going to propose to your sister. And I look at him, I'm like, what? And when? He's like, tomorrow. And then I was like, are you crazy? What do you mean you're going to propose tomorrow? Like, it was so crazy.
Did you tell the family?
No, he said that he was going to call my parents the next day and talk to them. And then I was like, I have 3 brothers. They're going to kill you. Like, what do you mean you're going to propose so soon? So then we had to make up a lie pretty much to say, hey, we're going to go ring shopping tomorrow. And he said that he's going to go.
He was a college student.
Yeah.
So before that, nobody knew I'm talking to this guy. Okay, I just got out of a 3-month relationship. I'm like, I don't want to tell my friends I'm dating a guy. Technically, me and Dima were never dating. So I'm like, I don't want to tell it. We were just friends. I don't even know if we were friends. We were just talking. So nobody knew I'm talking to this guy except my mom, maybe my dad, I don't know, and Ola. Literally nobody else. Mm-hmm. So here he goes, calls my parents, asking to marry me. Imagine my brother's response.
I was in the car when he called parents. So he calls my dad, and my dad was actually sleeping that time. So he calls my mom, and he asks for permission. And somehow my mom says yes. And she was calm, even though later she told me she had to take valerianka to come down. Then he calls my brothers, or mom tells my brothers, and they started blowing up my phone. They were like yelling at me. They're like, who's this guy? What do you mean he's proposing? And I was like, why is everybody yelling at me? It's not my fault. So then we looked at rings. So how I told her that I was leaving is I had to pretend I'm going on a date with Dima's friend. Mm-hmm. So I was like, hey, I'm going on a date with this guy. So we had
like, why are you going on a date? Like,
yeah. And I was like, I don't know. I'm just gonna go. And I was like, I don't know how she didn't know that it was.
No, Dima's sister asked me to hang out with her the next day. I'm like, well, Dima's in college, Olia's on a date. What am I supposed to do alone in Florida? So his sister asked me to go like shopping and things like that. I knew we were going to the beach in the evening, and Dima said we're gonna take some sunset pictures. He's like, buy yourself a cute little dress. I saw what he was wearing in the morning was like a coral shirt, so I decided to buy a similar color dress. Like, why was I matching the sunset? Like both of us are in these orange coral outfits.
That's so cute, though. How old were you when all of this was happening?
I just turned 19, like a few weeks ago.
19.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's pretty crazy for most people.
Yeah.
So tell us about the actual proposal. What went down?
So it was the evening. We meet at Siesta Key Beach. And so before that, I've always wanted to be proposed to at the beach. I don't know if I ever told anybody that. Like, just as a kid, I always imagined like my perfect proposal to be at the beach. Did not think that would actually happen. So we're walking, we're holding hands, and
I met you first, right before.
Oh yeah, I see Olia. We meet up in like the bathroom, and she's
Yeah.
throwing up.
I'm throwing up. I'm freaking out. Like, my sister is about to get engaged to this guy that I pretty much introduced her to.
Yeah, it's all your fault.
Yeah, and she obviously has no idea. But right before the proposal, the night before, her and I were laying in bed, and I said, Ina, if this guy would propose to you, what would you say? And she's like, yes, this is my husband. And then I was like, they're both crazy. Like, how? So I knew that she was going to say yes. I mean, I really didn't think she knew that it's going to be so soon.
Absolutely not. Nobody
thought-
knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're walking at the beach, and he's being very short with me. I'm like, watch, I finally really like a guy, and he's gonna break my heart. And I was like, I guess I kind of deserve it. I did break quite a few hearts before. So I'm like, I'll get my heart really broken. And then he looks at the time, and he goes, I need to use the restroom. I'm like, okay, that's weird. He times his bathroom times. Like,
Because
what?
I texted him that we need a couple more minutes. We were setting things up and the wave hit. So we had to put some candles again. So yeah, he texted her. Or no, I texted him and he looked at the time. Like, he needs to go use a restroom.
Yeah, and then we're walking, and I see like my sister, his siblings, and like a bunch of his friends, and I see this giant big heart, and I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe he's gonna say I love you, maybe he'll ask me to be his girlfriend, I don't know.
No.
We get in the heart, and he gets on his knee. I'm still clueless, honestly, like, and then he's
You're like,
digging.
promise ring?
Yeah, he's digging for the ring, and his brother dug it in pretty deep, so he couldn't find it. And then he finally gets in, he opens it, and I'm thinking, promise ring? And I was like, that's a big ring to be a promise ring. And I'm so confused still, and just like happy, whatever, going with the flow. And he's like, Ina Kaidevich, will you marry me? I'm like, I just said yes, like within a few seconds. Like, I didn't even think about it, which is so crazy.
And what was everyone's reaction when you came home after that?
Oh my goodness. My brothers, first of all, one of my brothers didn't talk to me for over a month. We were really close. Again, like nobody knew I'm talking to this guy. I come back engaged. My brothers are asking me, what does this guy do for a living? He didn't even work. He was a full-time college student.
Yeah.
I think he was like flipping cars on the side or something like that. But
Typical Slav.
yeah, so my brothers are like, what does he do for a living? I'm like, I don't know. Like,
I don't know
I
anything
just met
about
him. No, I mean, I knew he had good goals. He was in college to be a sign language interpreter. So, yeah, but everybody was freaking out. I posted on Facebook. Oh my goodness, the hate I got. First of all, my ex thought I was cheating on him because, I mean, who gets engaged like,
A month after
a month and a half
breakup?
later? So I get it. I don't blame
We
him.
had a deacon come to our house.
Yes, we did.
What?
Yeah,
I
a
didn't
deacon
know about
came
this.
and he said, right? He sat down with
Well, that's when we were supposed to get like announced at church, and he's like, this was all happening too soon. Like, what if it doesn't work out? So things like, a lot of people thought I was pregnant too. A lot
That's
of people.
surprising coming from the church, being like, what if it's too soon?
It's
Because
like-
I feel like Slavic weddings happen like that.
Yeah.
maybe not after 5 days, but yeah.
Not 5 days, but I mean, for them, like a couple months is fine
Oh,
usually.
yeah. But the rumors were insane.
Yeah.
People were like, she's definitely pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
10 years later.
Still pregnant. Yeah, it was definitely a shock for everybody. But so we were engaged for 6 months and things were just going so smooth. Technically, we've only seen each other 4 times. The fourth time was our wedding day.
That's insane. And how long was your guys' engagement? Because you would
6
think
months.
6 months.
Yeah. We would see each other like once in 2 months or so, and it would be like for a weekend or for like a week. So we got to know each other kind of.
Did you guys do anything specific to prepare for your marriage?
Honestly, we continued praying a lot and fasting. We still, I think, fasted every week until our wedding. And so what I would do is I would watch these like married couples, especially newlyweds, and I would see what the wives do and like the way they treat their husbands, the way they nag or complain. I'm like, okay, taking mental notes. This is what I should do, shouldn't do. So that was kind of fun just to watch people do that, just learn. Yeah.
Okay. So how long exactly have you been married now?
It's going to be 11 years next month, which is so crazy. It went by so fast.
So fast.
Like blink of an eye.
That's so crazy because some people, I mean, they date for like 7 years.
Right.
They'll live together, they'll everything, and then they get married and like it fails. But you
Yeah.
guys literally had only seen each other for 5 days.
That's
and
why
then you
it
get
was
engaged.
easier in a way. Okay, so our promise we made not to kiss, we were able to keep it. Again, it's because we barely saw each other. We actually had the craziest first kiss. So we got married at this big church that I went to, and there was like 1,000 people. It was on a Sunday. And my husband, the jokester that he is, decides to faint after our first kiss.
I took that video.
You took that video. You were like 8.
Yeah, it was like my iPhone 4 and it went viral on
Yeah.
Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh, the comments I got.
So much hate.
Yeah, the comments were saying, oh, she looked. So I was so nervous, obviously. So I covered our mouths as we were kissing, and I was so scared. The comments were saying, oh, she probably kissed every guy.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Your wedding was just so crazy. I just remember your big poofy dress
Oh,
and the Fanta girls standing up there
yes.
with you.
Oh.
Hey, back then it was cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but your wedding sparked a bunch of other marriages.
Yeah, Ola, that's how you met your husband.
Yes. So seriously, because of them, so many people got married. I found my husband at their wedding. My brother met his wife at their wedding.
Yeah.
And our friends, everybody married within each other.
Yeah.
All the friends married friends.
Yeah.
And it started because,
Technically because of you, Ola.
I mean, technically because my relationship ended and I flew to Florida and met Dima.
Yeah.
The string theory on this one is pretty crazy. So, Ola, you met your husband at Ina's wedding.
Yes.
What happened from there?
So I met my husband at the wedding. He stayed at my house with like a bunch of people, and I had tickets to a basketball game. There were front row seats, and I was asking everybody who was there, I'm like, hey, I have these 2 tickets. If anybody wants to go to a Nuggets game, let me know. So my husband and his friend, back then he wasn't my husband, but he's like, oh yeah, I love basketball. I'd love to go. And I'm like, okay, yeah, here you go. And that night he writes me on Facebook and says, hey, thank you so much for the tickets. It was awesome. I'd love to take you out for coffee. And then I was like, oh my goodness, I just had these tickets. Quick coffee. Like this wedding for me was so stressful. I mean, I was losing my twin. For me, this wedding honestly was kind of like a funeral. I know it sounds messed up, but to me, it was one of the hardest days. And I knew she was moving to Florida and I had to be alone. I mean, we did everything together. So yeah, that was not fun.
I cried after your wedding too.
Yeah.
It was very sad.
But anyways, my husband, that's when he wrote me. And then after that, he invited me. So he lived in Chicago. I lived in Colorado. He invited me to go to Florida to visit our friends for 4th of July. And he's like, hey, you should invite your friends. I'm coming with my friends. And, we can all meet up there. So I was like, yeah, I'd love to come. I'd love to see my sister. And I go there. And I'm not sure if it was that weekend, but I'm pretty sure it was. He started talking to me and told me that he has feelings for me. And I was like, no. So I friend zoned him then, the first friend zone. And I remember he gave me a Bible. You know how some guy gives like diamonds or flowers when they meet girls? I got a Bible.
The
So it
best
was
kind of
different.
gift.
Yes.
But it wasn't just any Bible, right?
It was his Bible that he's had for years, and he has so many things written in there. So he's like, do you have an American Bible? Because I read the Russian King James, which I don't even know what I understood, honestly. So he gave me that Bible, and I was like, I don't think I could take this. This means so much to you. And he's like, no, I'd really like you to take it. So then I take the Bible. Anyways, that was the first friend zone and rejection for him. And then about 2 years go by, and in those 2 years, I rejected him 3 times.
Were you dating other guys during that time?
I did date another guy, and he blocked me. Roman did. When he saw I posted a picture with a different guy, he blocked me, and he was not happy. But I was like,
He was mad at you.
you're friend zoned.
Yeah, like, we're
why
just
are you
friends.
sad? Honestly, he was just so opposite of anyone I've dated in the past. So
Mhm.
I was confused why he even liked me. He was super Americanized. He loved different type of music. He was a musician. He was more like a hipster. He lived in the city, and I'm this fob girl who loves heels, fur coats, Russian music,
And
and
your typical type, like what was your typical type before
fob,
Roman?
like stereotypical fob with
Salvage
the
title car.
toxic, controlling men who, I mean, I thought it was normal, and definitely fob with their cars. They either had like a BMW or a Mercedes, and I don't know, they were all the same. They all looked
I mean, I always thought they were the same. You used to literally have to take me on your dates with me.
I did. You were my chaperone.
I was your chaperone.
Yeah, so when I met my husband, I was like, there's no way this would work. We are so opposite. I don't even know how we're going to get along or what he sees in me. I thought he would choose this like hipster girl, and yeah.
Didn't you try to set him up with other people?
I
With
did.
2 of our friends.
I tried to set him up with 2 of my friends. He did start talking to one of my friends, and at that time we lived together, so they would FaceTime, and then he told her that she should take the Bible from me because he thinks I'm not reading it. And when I heard that, I was like, are you kidding me? I'm not giving you my Bible. Yeah, so, and then I also flew to Chicago with my other friend, and we just had dinner, and I was like, you guys should be together. Like, I think you guys would be so good together. And
You're like, somebody take him.
yeah, I'm like, he's such a great guy. I knew he was an amazing guy,
Uh-huh.
but I was like, he's just not for me. But he's
Mhm.
gonna be amazing for anybody, one of my friends.
So what was it that sparked the change?
So I was reading the Bible,
Mhm.
and the Bible that he got me, and in one of the verses he wrote LOL next to it. And then I was like, why would he write LOL next to a Bible verse? Interesting. So I sent him a picture and I said, why LOL? And then
Mhm.
he said something about among the lines like, oh, well, Jesus has a sense of humor too, or something like that. And then he's like, well, I shouldn't be talking to you because you have a boyfriend, pretty much saying bye. And I was like, oh, actually, I'm single. I'm not dating anyone. And he's like, oh, really? And he dove right in. So after that, I get a letter from him. I get this letter, and in this letter, he writes pretty much how he started praying about me. That it's been already 2 years, and he said that somebody sent him a picture of me before he's even met me, and he just started praying about me. Not like for a future wife or anything, but just like, I hope she's doing good, God protect her, something like that. And he told me his feelings, and then at the end, he said, just give me one date. Just
Mhm.
one date. And I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, it was very sweet. I did not expect that.
Yeah.
So then I was like, you know what? Whatever. I'll give him a date. I'm already going to Chicago in a few weeks. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll give him a date. So I tell him when I'm coming to Chicago, and we go on this date. And
I'm sure he was like, this is my one
Yes,
chance.
one
2 years
chance.
in.
Yes. So we go on this date, and he really surprised me because I thought he's very quiet and doesn't talk much. And then we go on this date. He takes me to a restaurant, and then we go to the tallest building in Chicago. And it was so beautiful. And we talked for hours. We really got to know each other. Even though we were kind of friends for those 2 years, I didn't really, know him.
Yeah.
So that night when I went home, I told Angie, I flew with her, and I was like, I'm going to marry this guy. Like, I just knew something was just different. And I was praying about this when I was flying to Chicago. I was really praying about this. Oh my God, like, I don't want to just date another guy. So after that date, I just kind of knew that he might be
right
my
after the
husband.
first date.
After the first date.
And how long did you guys date for?
We never dated. So
just friends?
He asked me that trip, he asked me to be his girlfriend, and I said no. He's used to getting rejected already by me. So I was like, honestly, I don't want another relationship. Let's just pray, see how this goes. And when I was leaving, he got me a book. He said, I'd like to read this book with you. And in this book, it was by Gary Thompson. And it was A Sacred Search. And after every chapter, it asks some questions, and you pretty much read it together and you answer to see if you're on the similar pages. And we were on similar pages about a lot of things. And he asked me then to go to Florida. So this was 3 weeks after. He's like, hey, would you like to go to Florida? We can visit Ina Dima and just hang out. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to come. So I fly to Florida, and this is the trip that he proposed.
3 weeks?
3 weeks of us talking.
No dating.
No dating.
So neither of you guys dated your husbands?
No.
Okay.
Roman's like, well, if I can't date her, I guess I'll just marry her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're in Florida, and Ina's prepping my outfit. We knew we were going to go to a pier and just hang out. And she's like, you should wear this. And I'm like, I don't want to wear this. It's kind of cold. It's chilly. I just want to wear this. And she's like, you should really wear this. I'm like, no.
She didn't listen. She's like, I want to be cozy.
You didn't try harder?
No. I don't know.
I don't know. Back then, like, the style was just
Ugly.
not cute.
So anyways, we're walking on this pier. I think we were in Tampa.
St. Pete.
Or St. Pete. We're walking to this pier. It was him and I, and we knew we were meeting them. So as we're walking on this pier, I didn't put in my contacts. I left them at home. So as we're walking, I'm like squinting my eyes. I see Ina and Karina standing. And as we're getting closer, there is a sign that says, you will marry me.
You will.
You will marry me. And then there's a heart with roses. And I was so confused. And I'm like, oh my goodness, they're making a prank on this guy. Oh no.
You're like, poor Roman.
Yeah. And then he goes in that heart shaped with the roses, and he asked me to marry him. And then I was so shocked. I was so thrown off. And then I said yes. So yeah.
It was an accident. Karina and
Was it?
It was an accident. Karina and I accidentally switched well, we didn't even realize it till later when we saw the pictures that it says, you will marry me.
Well, you did.
Yeah. It was awesome. But yeah, I said yes. And we've been married now 8 years, almost 9 this year, which is absolutely wild how time flies.
How long were you engaged for?
5.5 months.
5.5 months. And you didn't plan your wedding, right?
No, not really. I just said what colors I'm gonna do.
Mhm.
And my mother-in-law helped me with everything. They chose a restaurant. I just showed up on my wedding day, and I was like, this is nice. It was at I think like a Polish or a Russian restaurant, and the food was
The best.
bomb.
Yeah.
You know what I'm so sad about? I wasn't her bridesmaid because I was already married. We were too concerned about, the Slavic culture of like, oh, you shouldn't have a married couple as your bridesmaid and stuff. I am so mad about that
Because
now.
the way we grew up, if you're married, you can't be a bridesmaid.
Yeah. Yana, you were her bridesmaid.
I was a junior
She was
bridesmaid.
my junior bridesmaid, yeah.
How old were you then?
I think like 13.
Yeah.
So guys, big takeaway from this one. If you're friend zoned, just propose.
Just do it. She might say yes.
Seriously. Okay, so since you guys have both been married for quite a while, what advice after 10 years of marriage would you give to another couple?
So we kiss each other every single day. We never leave the house without kissing each other goodbye. And recently he left to work and I didn't even think about it. I kind of forgot. I made him breakfast and stuff. And then he comes back like 10 minutes later. He drove out and he came back. He's like, I'm sorry, I forgot to kiss you. To me, that was the cutest
Aw,
thing
so
ever.
cute.
I think for the past almost 11 years, every single day we make sure always kiss each other, good night or, when we leave. That's one of them. And then I would say just be supportive of each other's goals, your dreams. We are constantly growing and stuff. So my husband comes up with crazy business ideas and I'm like, let's do it. Or same for me, I get some new hobbies or my business. Like he's been so supportive in my business journey. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be where I am now.
I agree about the support. I think that is so important because we both had great careers. And when we decided to completely switch to opening a spa, I didn't know how my husband was going to react when I told him, hey, I want to go into beauty. He was like, wait, really? That's what you want to do? But he was so supportive from day one. And till this day, even when I'm so stressed out about opening the spa, he'll tell me like, it's okay. Why are you worried? It's going to be fine. And it's so important to have a supportive spouse.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And just like having fun, marriage is what you make it. Well,
Oh,
you
yeah.
used to tell me this one all the time, like marriage is what you make it.
It's just between you guys, you choose. If you are going to raise your voice, you are choosing to raise your voice. There's different ways that you could say things like, hey, you should throw away the trash. I asked you for so many days. Or you could say, hey, babe, do you mind throwing away the trash? It smells.
Well, if you say it that way.
Please. But I think the way you talk to each other is so important. Not raising your voice. I can't imagine my husband raising a voice at me. Same as me. I don't know how to yell. Obviously, we have disagreements on things, but the way you talk to each other, I think it's so important. The way you respond and the way you talk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Both of your guys' husbands are super romantic. Like your guys' birthdays, they're always going out of their way.
My husband is such a big planner, which I
Mhm.
love. And he loves to surprise us. I mean, they surprised us to Europe
Yeah.
for our birthday, which was so shocking. That was the last place I thought we were going to go to.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that and I was like, you guys are gonna what? And trying to keep that secret from
Oh,
you.
yeah.
I remember you're packing and I'm like, I don't even know what to tell them because I'm trying to ask them. I'm like, where in Europe are you taking them?
Yeah, we thought we were going camping.
To Colorado. We packed very ugly clothes to Europe. Thanks, Yana.
Yeah.
Hey,
we
it wasn't
packed
my fault.
cozy.
Well, they told me that you guys are going somewhere cold. That's all I knew. I
Mhm.
knew you were going to London, but other than that, I had no idea.
I guess they didn't know themselves because they asked us. They said, "Hey, where do you want to spend your actual birthday?" And
Yeah,
we
they let
chose-
us choose any country when we were in London, and we chose Paris that
Yeah.
time. And then, yeah, it was amazing.
My husband is a big he loves surprises more than anything, and when he does a
Mhm.
surprise, he goes all out, a little extreme.
Yeah.
He surprised her with a house once.
Yeah, he surprised me with my dream house. That was one of the greatest things he's ever done or anyone's done for me.
Mhm.
We were house hunting, and there's a house I fell in love with. But the next day, I saw that it was already pending or contingent.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh no, and I was so sad. And then any house we would look at, I'm like, I would compare everything to this house. Little did I know he already put in an offer.
When he called me and told me, he's like, "Hey, I'm putting an offer in a house and I'm gonna surprise her." So I had to pretend to be Ina and close the house. Very
Sign all the
illegal,
paperwork.
but I took her license and I went and signed. I don't know how legal this is. Obviously, it's not, but we made it work.
It's okay, we already sold the house, so it doesn't matter how legal it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
I love that. So, both of you guys decided to wait until marriage.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What made you guys decide to make that decision?
Like purity wise?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's in the Bible, first of all, but it's just I didn't even think there's an option growing up.
Exactly.
It's just how we were raised. There's one thing, I think it was my mom who told me. I think I was 13 or 14, and mom said, there's already a husband for you out there. God already knows who's going to be your husband, so pray for him every day. If he's having a bad day, anything, just think about him and pray for him. And I would just pray for my husband. I mean, I was praying for Dima this whole time. But another thing, mom, I think it was my mom who said, whatever you do with other guys, since you already have a husband in store for you, you're pretty much cheating on your husband. I took that so seriously, it would freak me out.
That's why you had a hand body count.
I remember, I don't know if it was a preacher or somebody said this, that think of an apple, and every person that you're with, they take a bite of the apple, and then your husband or wife gets the seeds. So I was so young, but I remember that so well. And I was like, okay, I have to save the apple.
So Yana, do you have the same perspective, or did you always have the same perspective on purity?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was a little bit different. I went through a period of time as a teenager where I sort of fell away. And so I was in the situation where I was living with a guy. That was something coming out of. I never felt like that was the right thing to do. After coming out of that relationship, that's when I knew I was like, I'm going to make the decision and I'm going to wait till marriage, because you almost have that mindset where you're like, I'm already not a virgin. It's like, what's the point? But it's more than just about that. It's about the purity in your mind and not having that lust in your heart and that obedience to God and like making that decision. And so it's like, okay, from now on, and that's like what repentance is all about, is like changing the way that you look at something completely and deciding to do better. And at any point in your life, you know, you can take a look at your life and be like, I don't like this, you know, I tried it my way, it didn't go well, I want to try it God's way. And I think your guys' stories and your marriages too are just so inspiring to me, because I mean, me personally, I watched my mom go through 2 divorces. My parents got divorced when I was 6. So it was a bit of, you know, a tough thing. Like if I didn't see your guys' marriages, I would be like, oh, there's no such thing as like a good and happy marriage. Like everyone gets divorced or everyone has these problems. And I had these toxic relationships, but watching how your husbands treat you, and I'm like, okay, you know, like there really are good and godly marriages out there. And it's like, God doesn't just give us rules to give us rules. Like he sets these things up to protect us.
Right.
And like, even if you take like religion out of it, like waiting until marriage, there's just so many statistics that prove that that is going to help you to have a better marriage. It's not just like such a little thing. Like you could literally potentially make a child. You could get a disease. Like there's just, it's such an intimate thing that's so normalized in our culture today.
Yeah.
Well, hookup culture is just such a common thing now. And, you know, like no judgment towards anybody at a certain walk in their life too, because I know there are even some Christians who don't view it the same way. And I think at everyone's like walk in their journey, you feel convicted about certain things at certain times. And, you know, like I wasn't necessarily convicted about that right away, but then it was just something that sort of happened over time. And I got convicted about other things as well. And it's like, once you really just like put your faith in God, that's when those changes happen within yourself. It's never right to really judge someone with where they're at, and always love everyone.
Just hearing your testimony, Yana, and just seeing you change this past like year, it's been the most beautiful thing. Just seeing you, how much you've grown as a Christian. I look up to you now.
Absolutely.
It's not me at all, and it's just God and Holy Spirit, and he does such amazing things in and through people if you just let him.
Oh yeah.
All right, guys, let's get into our word of the week this week.
Are we gonna go with Lapachka?
Should we go with Lapachka?
I think it's a cute word. It's like a cute name that you could call your significant other.
If you translate it to English, it's like a cute leg.
Little paw.
Little paw.
Because lapa means paw. But
Yeah.
in like the Russian language, you add chka to like make a word cute.
Yeah.
And so Lapachka is like a cute name you could call probably a significant other. I don't know who else. Or like someone who's being really sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could say Lapachka. We love using that word.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Ana takaya Lapachka.
Yeah.
I call my grandparents when I see them. I'm like, Lapachka.
I know.
Yes, that's the plural version. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in this week. If you're not already, follow us on Instagram at Kind of Fob Podcast. And please take a second and just rate us on Spotify or whatever podcast platform you're listening on. And yeah,
We'll see you next week.
bye.